Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum dear students and welcome back. So we here will continue our example of the JRadio button. So already we have explained the JRadio button concepts with the constructor of the JRadio button. Then we have explained how we can group the JRadio buttons and how we can add them into the panel. And now we have the examples. It is a complete executable example. First of all, we have defined different libraries for this example. First one is java.awt.stacks. This is abstract windowing toolkit library, and it is used to define the frame, or in fact define the uh, container for the Java GUI. Next, we have AWT.event.statics library. This library is used for the event programming in Java. Next one is javax.swings.statics library. This library is used to define the swing components, and JRadioButton is one of the swing components. All the swing components have the J character in the in the start. So this is the symbols, or in fact it is the recognition way how you will recognize that this is the swing components. If it is the starting with the J English character or alphabet, then it is the swing components. Now public class frame1 extends JFrame. Here we have our frame1. Frame1 is the class which is public class. Public means that it can be accessed everywhere in the package or in the project. Extends means it is inherited. Public one is inherited from the JFrame. JFrame is a built-in parent class, and it that means that frame one, which is our class, it will act like as a frame or a GUI. Next, we have private JText field T. This is the Java text fields, and T is the instantiated object of the JText field. Here we just declare the objects, not define it. Then we have private font, plain font, bold font. It is the font class. Class contains different sort of the fonts of the text. Here just we have instantiated or declared two objects: plain font, bold font, italic font, bold italic font. Private JRadio buttons, plain, bold italics buttons. Here we have defined different radio buttons. First one is the plain button, second one is the bold button, third one is the italic button, and last one is the bold italic button. Now private button group, radio group. So we have to group all these buttons. So that's why we must have a group here, which is called the button group. Button group is a built-in class, and we have declare an object of the radio group of the button class. Here we have the constructor public frame1 is the constructor. Here defined the container C get content bin. That means we have defined the C object of the container class, which will contains the full GUI of the Java. Then we have defined the layout C.set layout new flow layout. When we will resize the program, so that means that all the components will be arranged from left to right. So this is the free fall layout here. Then T is equal to new JText field, where here we have just initiated, or in fact just declare the JText fields of the JText field class. T is the object, but here we have completely defined this object in the container. So T is equal to new JText field, watch the font change, comma 25. 25 is the font size, and this is the string here. C.add T. C.add T means that we have added T into the container. Container is defined here. Now plain is equal to new JRadio button plain, comma true. Here we will define all the radio buttons. Here just we have defined declare initiated, not initiated, but just declare different buttons. For example, plain button, bold italic, and similarly these are different sort of the JRadio buttons. So plain is equal to new JRadio button plain, comma true. C.add plain. Bold is equal to new JRadio button bold, comma false. Similarly, we added this into the container. Here we have defined the italic radio button. Italic is equal to new JRadio button italic, comma false. And also we have added italic button into the container. Next, bold button is a new JRadioButton button, bold italic, comma false. C dot add bold italic. So we have defined 4 different radio buttons here and added all these radio button into the container. So far, one text fields and 4 different radio buttons are added into the container. Now, radio button handler, new radio button handler. This is the handler of the radio button. Uh, Dear student, as you remember that in the previous JButton examples, we have just defined the button handler, but here we are defining radio button handler. So this is different than the button handler. So this is the radio button handler, which is an event, or this is the class which will create the event for the radio button. Plain dot add item listener handler. Similarly, bold dot add item listener handler and italic dot add item listener handler and bold italic dot add item listener handler. So that means we have associated this handler with all the radio buttons, including bold, plain, bold, italic, and bold italic. Now, create logical relation between the JDRO button. It means that we have to define the group and add all these groups so that they may be related with each other. So means that they may be synchronization of the radio button with each other. When one radio button is clicked, the other should be automatically unchecked or unclicked or unselected. Okay, radio button dot add plain. We will add all the previously defined radio buttons into the groups. Now, plain font, here we will define different sort of the font. The fonts we have declared in the previous lectures, now previous slides here. For example, there are fonts, private font, plain font, bold font, italic font, and bold italic. And here, plain font, new font, times Romans, comma, font dot plain, comma 14. That means that the font should be time Roman and it will be a plain form and size of the font will be 14. Similarly, time New Roman, comma font, comma bold, comma 14. This will be the bold font, and this will be the italic font and size of the 14. This will be font dot bold plus font dot italic. If you want to combine 2 different fonts, you have to just concatenate all these fonts with each other, and this define the size of the font. So t dot set font, plain font, set size 300, comma 100, and show. Here, text box T. This was the in fact a text fields which we have defined here. So here the t.set font means first of all the plain font will be the default font of the text fields. Then we have defined set size 300, 100, so means that 300 pixels in the length and 100 pixel width will be the dimension of the GUI. So 300 pixels from the x-axis towards the x-axis and 100 pixels towards the y-axis. This will be the screen resolution at the dimension of the GUI. And show means this have to be show. So that's why we have called the built-in function of the show. Here the constructor is completed. Now we will define our radio button handler class, which is implements relation with item listener interface class. This is the interface class, and interface class has implement association relations with the radio buttons. So radio button is using item listener interface class. This is the body of the class public void item state change item event E. So item state change is in fact a built-in function that we have defined here, and it will look for the check or the click event of the radio button. If get source double equal to plain, that means if the plain named radio button is checked or clicked, then t.set font plain font. Then the plain font should be the font of the text field components. Else if e.get source double equal to the bold, then the text field have the bold font. Else if e.get source double equal to the italic button is correct, then t.set font italic font. Else if e.get source double equal to bold italic, t.set font bold italic font. Here we have defined completely defined the radio button handler class And this is the end of the constructor. Here public stated void main string args. This is a void main function which must be in every Java program, and because the Java program execution starts from the void main, so that's why we have an object instantiation in the void main. Frame1 app is equal to new frame1. Here we have defined the app object of the frame1 class because our class is the framework initially we have defined. So when the object enunciation, then completely the constructor is called, and when the constructor is called, that means all operations are performed. Now, dear students, we will run this code in our Java Eclipse IDE. So for this purpose, click escape button so that you can stop the slideshow. So when the slideshow has been stopped, now you have to transfer all this code into the Eclipse IDE. So first of all, select this code and put it into the Eclipse in any program. For example, I'm using the same class A. Also transfer this side of the code into the Eclipse IDE here, and also this code should be transferred into the Eclipse IDE. And last one, we have this code. Now we have completed our code into the Eclipse IDE, but because our file name is class A, but here in the code we have the frame1, so that's why we have to change the class name here. First we have made changes here. Everywhere you find the red lines, red underlines into the code, you must have to change here. This is the um, uh, warning message. It is just warning, so you can ignore this as well. So here you also have to change class name in the object instantiated in the void main function. So here our code correction is complete. Now you will run the code here. To run the code, click on the run class A button. So here you have to compile all this code. So when you have compiled the code, now you will see the output. Here is the output. Now you can put this GUI everywhere. Now this is the reason of the flow layout. If you are using the flow layout and when you resize the GUI, you can see that the components will be arranged in certain format from the left to right, and if I decrease the size, so you see that all the components may be transferred from the top to bottom position. So that's why this is the flow layout. Okay, now we will perform the operation. This is the plane. If I click on the bold, this is the bold. If I click on the italic, this is the italic. This is it. And if I want to select the bold and italics both, so this is bold and italic both. Again, if I want to select the plane, so this is just a plane. And if I like italic, the italic event will call. This is the another event that I'm calling it. So this is the demonstration of how you can use the radio button in the Java. Next important control of the Java is called JCheck box. Dear students, we have consumed 15 minutes for this lectures, so we will continue this slides in our upcoming lectures. Thank you very much.